Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley were my former students in legislation in classes I taught at the Harvard Law School and the Yale Law School, respectively. I was thoroughly disgusted with the reprehensible behavior and the reprehensible language of both of my former students. I've been a law professor almost 40 years, the last 22 at Yale. Ted Cruz was a very memorable student. He was not a shrinking violet. I don't think he was very popular among his fellow students, but I think the faculty, including me, really enjoyed him as a student and respected him. Josh Hawley was quieter, vastly more popular with his fellow students. He was not as outspoken a class participant as Ted Cruz had been, and was not as outstanding a student. They were very conservative, they were very ambitious, they were presumably Republicans, and were going to advance through their connections politically. I couldn't bear to watch the insurrection and the sacking of the US Capitol by the mob that had been directly incited by the President of the United States. And indirectly incited by the President's supporters, including my student Josh Hawley, whose clenched fist as he entered the Capitol building surely played its own role in inspiring and inflaming the crowd. Both Cruz and Hawley tried to dress up irresponsible presidential claims with some Ivy League constitutional claims.
I look to history, to the precedent of the 1876 election, the Hayes-Tilden election, where this Congress appointed an electoral commission to examine claims of voter fraud. And what I would urge of this body is that we do the same, that we appoint an electoral commission to conduct a 10-day emergency audit.
Well, okay, he's very learned. He knows about that. But it's very inapt for a number of reasons. One reason is that the 1877 Commission is a terrible precedent. It's a terrible precedent. Why? Because the Republicans stole that election. The Democrats, Tilden, got a majority of the vote. The loser, Hayes, his allies basically usurped, stole electors in South Carolina, Florida, and Louisiana, where the popular majorities had been against the Republicans. And then if that's not enough, Senator Cruz seems to have conveniently forgotten that in 1877, the president didn't take office until March. And so the Electoral Commission was not under the time pressure in that year that it would have been in 2021.
Pennsylvania elected officials passed a whole new law that allows universal mail-in balloting. This was the statute that governed this last election, in which there are over 2.5 million mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court hasn't heard the case. There's no other court to go to hear the case in the state. And so this is the appropriate place.
This lawsuit after the election was asking the Pennsylvania judiciary to invalidate 2 million voters. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it in the history of presidential elections. It was not challenged in 2019, which the statute said if you're going to challenge it this year. It was not challenged in 2020, before the election, at all. It was challenged in a bootless lawsuit after the election, which was unanimously rejected by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court on the grounds that this was too late. I don't have any respect for the arguments, the legal arguments, that are made by very intelligent people who know better, who know that these are illegitimate arguments. And they ultimately fall back on the idea, well, some of our constituents believe these kinds of arguments. And it seems to me that is the height of irresponsibility. And as far as anybody can gather, they were doing it for personal political gain.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, politicians do things for personal political gain, but you do not subvert our system of government for partisan political gain. I was raised as a Republican. I'm an independent The Republicans are a party that has sold its soul. And so there's this other party, which is unrecognizable to me, whose members are terrified of criticizing a sociopathic president who seems to be holding them hostage electorally. George W. Bush, succeeded by Obama, almost 180-degree ideological turn. As far as I can gather, could not have been more gracious. President Obama, succeeded by somebody, it's not even 180 degrees. It's like a different universe. Could not have been more gracious. President Trump handing over to Joe Biden, the sorest, most bitter, sour grapes loser in American history. I think at the very least, the American people deserve an apology.